Hello, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to review the Almaden Valley, California real estate market analysis for February of 2009. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I'm a licensed real estate broker in the state of California. I'm also a member of the National Association of Realtors and a certified ePro. And I'm also the president and CEO of Whitelaw & Sons Real Estate Services. Now, if you'd like to get in contact with me, there are a number of ways to do that. First, you can visit my website at www.soldbyrobert.com, and there you will find articles I've written on real estate, other podcasts that I usually do weekly on real estate topics, and also my other real estate market analysis that you can play right through my website or right on YouTube. And if you'd prefer to email me directly, you can do that at robert@soldbyrobert.com. If you'd prefer to call me on the telephone, feel free to dial 408-852-0525. If you're feeling a little bit shy and you'd rather talk online with one of the instant messaging programs, I'm up on AOL Instant Messenger, Google Talk, and Yahoo IM with the screen name The Rebel Broker. On Skype, you can find me at Rebel Broker. And of course, referrals are always appreciated. If you or anyone you know is interested in real estate in Santa Clara County, Silicon Valley, as a lot of folks know it, feel free to get in contact with me, and I'll be happy to help you in any way I can. And also, if you're interested in an agent outside of this area, anywhere in the United States, I can go through the process of finding the agent that's perfect for your needs. Just get in touch using any of the methods mentioned above. Let me know exactly what you're looking for, whether you're a buyer, a seller, or an investor, and I will hook you up with the perfect agent in your area. All right, now let's go ahead and jump in and take a look at the supply and demand numbers for Almaden Valley, California for February of 2009. We'll go ahead and take a look at the inventory numbers to start, and we can see that we've obviously been seeing a steady increase in Almaden Valley. Now, one thing I'd like to mention this month is that this is a really good example of how micro markets can be so different. Now, for those of you who review my monthly market analysis on a regular basis, if you're only looking at your own community, you might be missing out on some interesting comparative information, as I also do Los Gatos and Morgan Hill areas, and then also the county in general. It's interesting to see the variation. If you compare this, say, to Morgan Hill, the numbers are quite different. So these micro markets really do play a huge part in how real estate relates to you specifically, whether you're a buyer or a seller. I mean, if you are someone who wants to buy in Almaden Valley, the numbers there, the trends there, what's happening there is very different from areas, say, such as Los Gatos or Morgan Hill. All right, but let's go ahead and we're focused now on Almaden Valley, so let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got going on there. We can see that the inventory, that's the numbers we're looking at now, and this is just for the month of February, so there's no seasonal influences here. We're looking at just the month of February going all the way back to 1999. We can see that we have had an increase of 62.5%. That means we have 45 more homes on the market in February of 2009 than we did in February of 2008 in Almaden Valley, so that's not great news. And that's actually not the trend in a lot of areas. We've actually seen some inventory numbers looking a little bit better in some communities, but it's definitely gone up in Almaden Valley. Now, that gives us a grand total of 117 homes currently on the market in Almaden Valley. If we take a look at the homes that have been listed, we can see a big jump there. Again, that's counter to some trends we've seen in other communities where the number of homes listed is down. What's interesting is that we don't see a lot of the foreclosure and short sale influences in Almaden Valley that we do in other areas, but we'll cover that a little bit further into this presentation. But for right now, we can see that a lot more people are putting their home on the market in Almaden Valley right now. It may be that folks in that Almaden market are seeing this as their opportunity to potentially get their home sold before things get worse. There might be a general perception on that market that things aren't going to get better in the coming months, despite what a lot of folks in the media are telling us. Now, new listings were actually up 77.42%. That was a 24-home increase from February of 2008. So 24 more homes were listed in February of 2009 than in February of 2008. Now, that gave us a grand total of 55 homes that were listed. If we go ahead and move on and take a look at the number of homes that were sold, we can see it's a relatively flat performance. Sales were actually up 11.11%. That's a little bit more dramatic than reality indicates, because that's really only one more home sold in February of 2009 than February of 2008. But I tell you, any movement in the correct direction is fine with me, as we can see looking at this that going all the way back to 2004, we've had a pretty steady decline in sales in the Almaden Valley area, while inventory numbers have been going up. So you can see that the last real robust year, I mean, if you look at 2005 from a standpoint of number of homes that are selling versus the number of homes in inventory, all of those numbers, really an amazing year. There was really only, for about every home that sold, there was really only one or two other homes on the market, really probably about 1.5 homes on the market. So that was a good market, relatively balanced. Anything that's under 4, 3.5 or 4, I think is a pretty healthy market. And things have just been getting steadily worse ever since. We'll go ahead and take a look at this and see that one of the things I like to do is analyze the inventory numbers versus the number of homes that sold. So that gives us an idea of how many months of inventory we have on hand. Now, this month, that number stands at 13 months of inventory. If we look at that compared to last month we had 18.8 months of inventory. So we've actually had an improvement. Which we'll see. Obviously, they're not comparing this to 2008. We're comparing this just to January of 2009. So that's why you're seeing a discrepancy there. Now, to compare it to the county number stands at 8.67. So we're a full 10 months longer to get the inventory sold. If the inventory numbers and sold numbers stayed where they are right now, we're performing 10 months more poorly than the county at large is, which is a little unusual for Almaden. Almaden is usually a little bit more of a robust market, so that's a little bit of a surprise. Now, if we go ahead and take a look at these same numbers just over past months. Now, the numbers you're about to see do represent seasonal influences. Remember, we're just going back calendar months to September of 2007. Now, first we're going to look at our inventory numbers, and you can see we've had a pretty steady increase here when it's averaged out. Now, that's what that single blue line sort of going across everything is indicating. It's averaging out the general trend of the numbers we're seeing. Now, of course, you get the general ups and downs for summer months, winter months, that type of thing. What we'll do here is try and look at where we were last year at this time, and see if the trends hold true. Now, you can see it in November of last year was where we hit our lowest point. Same thing last year. And from November on, we saw increases in inventory numbers going all the way up until about June. And that fits in with the normal cycle of the market. Now, it's actually good news to see things falling with the normal cycle of the market. Whenever we see things that don't fit with what would be considered a normal market, or dramatic changes from previous markets, usually that means there's some sort of external force really pushing things one way or another. While we'd like to see these numbers trending down, at least we're not seeing some dramatic external influence pushing things out of alignment in a more general way. So given this information, what could we expect? Here we are in February of 2009. You can see in February of 2008, we had the same sort of relationship to January. We had an increase. Now, last year it was much more of a gradual increase. We had a dramatic increase in inventory in February of 2009. That's a little bit interesting because we should see continuing increases as we move into the summer months, as more homes come on the market to take advantage of the summer. That's what I would anticipate. I don't see any reason to think we're not going to see the months coming up performing any differently than we did last year, given these numbers. What I would have liked to have seen was a more gradual increase, but that doesn't seem to be the case. We've had such a dramatic increase between January and February. We might actually see the same sort of dramatic increase between February and March, because look at the increase we had last year between February and March, and then it was fairly stable between March and April. Or excuse me, it was stable between April and May. But that increase we saw when you look at where the February numbers went after February in March, that's a little bit of a concern. And between March and April, we had another big increase. So we may be in for some really amazing inventory numbers as far as bad news is concerned in Almaden Valley in these next 2 or 3 months. So we'll keep an eye on that, and of course I'll report these to you each month, and we'll see where it trends out. But if last year is any indicator as far as how much of an increase we're going to see, this is likely to be a pretty depressing season as far as how many homes are out there on the market in the Almaden Valley area. Now, the inventory numbers changed from January of 2009 to February of 2009. Inventory was up 24.47%. That's 23 more homes in the inventory in February of 2009 than in January of 2009. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at those listed numbers. We can see, again, the trend here is up, not quite as dramatically as the inventory numbers, but still it's up in a way that's a little bit concerning. Not so much by when it's happening. It's happening at the normal times. You'd normally expect the ramp-up time to summer seeing an increase in listings. It's the amount that we're seeing. Now, if you look at the ramp up between December, January, and February now, it's pretty dramatic. January saw a gigantic increase, and then again a further increase in February. If you look at last year, we saw the same thing, but it was much more gradual. We had a big jump between December and January, but then between January and February, very, very subtle increase, and we didn't see that. We saw a big increase this time around. Where are we likely to go from here? Well, because, and this all plays into what we were talking about a moment ago about general increases in inventory. If last year is an indicator, we're going to see a lot more people putting their homes on the market in the next few months in hopes of getting it sold during the summer. So that means a lot more competition for sellers out there who are going to be vying for the attention of the few buyers that seem to be coming out right now. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the sold numbers. At least there's a little bit of good news here. We can see that in February that number is actually up. And just to give you the numbers for the number of homes listed, that was actually up 30.95% from January to February. That's 13 more homes listed than were in February than in January. Now the sales numbers are up 100%. It basically doubled. We had 5 more homes sold in February than in January, so that's actually pretty good news. Now, if we look at last year between January and February, we didn't see that sort of increase. It was relatively flat. In fact, the numbers between January and February saw a decrease. The good news here is that I think we've got a lot more buyers out there poking around in general for properties. Now, granted, the vast majority of folks I'm seeing out there that are generating searches to find properties are focusing on short sales and foreclosures. A lot of work's going into finding those types of properties because they're perceived as such great deals. The downside is we don't see a lot of short sales and foreclosures in the Almaden Valley area. Now, they're just not as prevalent as in some areas. But Almaden Valley is a pretty desirable place to go. I know it's one of the places I go to when I'm looking for investment properties. I'm pretty enthusiastic about it. Maybe it's because I went to elementary school there. I lived there for a few years when I was a little guy. But I've always liked Almaden Valley. It's a beautiful place, and it's one of its best advantages is that you feel like, depending on what part of town and part of Almaden you're in, you can feel like you're way out of the city and still only be 15 minutes away from a lot of different places throughout the valley. So it's an amazing community. We'll see how things pan out for it relating to sales. Because we've seen a little bit more fluctuation here in these last few months. I mean, if we look back to November, December, January, February, we can see there was a steady decrease from October all the way down until January and February. We didn't really see that this time around. We saw a decrease from October to November, and then we saw a slight boost in December that we didn't see last year. So the data that we saw last year as far as number of homes sold really isn't helping us in anticipating where sales are going to go. So if I look at sort of what I'm seeing anecdotally with the number of buyer requests or buyer inquiries relating to homes that are for sale, I wouldn't be surprised if we see sales numbers increasing a bit just because I've seen a general uptick in activity in general on the part of buyers. But I don't know if we're going to see anything dramatic. And I'll tell you, I don't think we're going to see anything dramatic enough to take on the potential inventory increases that we may see in the coming months. Because if last year's numbers indicate, as we've talked about, could be some pretty dramatic inventory increases in Almaden, which could really make it tough on sellers. But the good news is that makes it great for you buyers out there. So you've got tons and tons of properties to choose from. Now let's go ahead and sort of get all this in context of the short sale and foreclosure situation. Foreclosures made up 20% of the homes that sold in Almaden Valley. 80% of the homes were conventional sales. There were no short sales that got sold in the month of February. And again, if you've watched my county presentation or any other city that I do, this is not normal for the various communities out there. It's usually the other way around. It's usually close to 80% of the properties that are selling are short sales and foreclosures, and maybe 20% of them are conventional. So I think this speaks to the general robustness of the kind of market we have. Now, granted, inventory numbers are going crazy. All these other things around the market in Almaden Valley are going crazy. But in general, the type of homes that you're finding in there aren't ones that are ending up in short sales and foreclosures. They're tending to be conventional properties. So that's actually relatively good news. And the only real bad news in there is that is really that so much attention is going to short sales and foreclosures. A lot of buyers out there are fairly ignorant of some of the amazing conventional sale deals that they can get. Now, just to sort of also bring this into comparison, 68% of the homes that sold at the county level were short sales or foreclosures. So you can see it's almost exactly the opposite of what we're seeing in this smaller community of Almaden Valley. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at home prices. This is, again, just over past year, so the month of February, going back to 1999, and we'll take a look at the average sales prices. Here's another area where Almaden really shows how unique a community it really is. Average price has really not gone down that much, while I'm doing double-digit drops in most other areas. I believe in Morgan Hill we had over a 30% drop between 2008 and 2009. Here in Almaden Valley, things are far more stable. Things haven't really moved that much since 2005. You've seen some decreases since 2007, but not some of this wholesale rock bottom drop in average sales price. Now remember, these are the homes that are selling. And because you folks don't have a lot of these short sales and foreclosures in Almaden Valley that we do in other areas, we're not seeing the average sales price of the homes that are getting sold being artificially dropped. But even having said that, it doesn't really paint the whole picture of Almaden Valley of just how robust and how strong home prices have remained in the face of this down market. Now, the average home price is only down 2.63%. Now, as I said, there are some areas where that number is dropped by a percentage of about 30%, so things in Almaden have remained relatively stable. That's a dollar change of $27,500. Now, the average home price was $1,016,777. The median price change was down 2.15%, which was a $20,000 drop, and the median price was $910,000. And you can see the relationship here. What this basically tells us is that the homes that have been selling in general make up more of the homes. In other words, if there were 100 homes sold, over half of those, about 60 of them, 70 of them would have been sold below the average price. So the median just sort of gives you an idea of the volume where the homes are clustered above and below the average price. And in this case, we can see that they're tending to cluster below. An interesting thing about Almaden is that the relationship between median and average home prices has really remained relatively the same over the last few years, which is kind of interesting to note, but it usually means that there are a few higher-priced homes that are selling against a larger volume of lower-priced homes that are selling. But again, the median is still way up there at 910, so that's still a pretty strong, robust performance. The highest-priced home in Almaden Valley was at 7048 Castle Rock Drive. It sold for $1,720,000 and was originally listed for $2,149,000, and it took 91 days for that home to sell. The lowest-priced home was 6395 Farm Hill Way, and that sold for $645,000. It was listed originally for $765,000, and this is another one of those homes where it was relisted. So when the numbers are reported, it's not going to say it was originally listed for $765. It's going to say it was originally listed for $665. But that price was taken. That home was taken off the market for about a month, and then the price was reduced. And then the reason why they take it off for that 30-day magic number is so it'll lose its connection to the previous listing, so that it doesn't look as bad. Not a practice I approve of. The home was on the market for 181 days. The average price per square foot was $434.02. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the home price numbers just over the past months, sort of give us an idea of what the trends are, see if we can get any good information from that. Now, as you can see, it's showing over the period of time a downward trend. If you'll look at the scope of the number we're talking about here, though, it's not a very dramatic change. Again, as I said before, the average price was only down 2% from the same time last year. Very, very big increase between January and February. Does this tell us anything that can educate us on where things are going to be happening in the next few months? Not particularly, unfortunately. We're not seeing any huge trends. We tended to see the average price be a little higher in the summer months. So once we got into March, April, May, June, things were starting to look on average a little bit higher, and we really started to see that in May, June, July, August. That's the main stretch. The June, July, August period is usually the time when people anticipate that being the hot time for the summer months. And then, of course, when folks go into contract on these properties, they close the next month. So that big month of July and August for sales, you really see those increases reflected in the August and September numbers as folks want to close escrow, particularly in areas like Almaden, before the school year starts in September. So that's kind of why you see a little bit more of a boost there in the August and September timeframes. Now, if we go ahead and look at some of these numbers, the average home price, again, was just over $1 million. The percentage price increase from January to February was 20.19%. That's $170,777 change. The median price was up 19.74%. That's a dollar value of $150,000. And again, the total number of homes sold in Almaden Valley was 10. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at how many days it's taking to get these homes sold. And I'll go ahead and give you a little bit of a better breakdown on that. Let's see, now the days to sell was up 17.81%. That's 13 more homes sold in 2000. That's 13 more days to get a home sold in 2009 than in February of 2008. The lowest days on market was 3. The highest days on market was 181. The next closest was 135. So how real is this number as far as averages go? Well, I've reviewed the data, and it's actually pretty good. Now, last month we saw about 20% of the homes that sold in under 30 days. Same exact performance in February of 2009. About 20% of the homes that sold in less than 30 days. I think that this is a fairly realistic number. I'd go with, say, about 90 days if you're ballparking it as someone who's considering selling your home or putting it on the market. Look for it to take about that long for you to get your home sold in the market as we currently see it in Almaden Valley. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the days to sell in past months. This is looking all the way back now to September of 2007, and you can see the general trend here is increasing. We've had a few months where things are popped up or popped down. Remember, a lot of that can have to do with just 1 or 2 homes sort of throwing the numbers off on average. This month we didn't really see that. Last month we did see that, where we had one home that had been on the market for quite some time selling, and because we have such a low number of homes selling, anywhere from 5 to 12 homes, one home that's been on the market 300 days can push that average number way up and make it a little bit artificial. But this general trend line thing, I think, is representative of what we've actually lived through in Almaden Valley. And again, we've arrived here at about 86 or 90 days to get a home sold. Now, between January and February, the numbers tell us it was a decrease of 25.86%, with a decrease of about 30 days to get a home sold. I think the reality is that once we compensate for that property that took a little bit longer to sell than the others that sold in January, that number would probably be closer to being around 80 or 81. So much more of a smooth progression between December and February. Now let's go ahead and take one last look here at where some of these properties were located. These are all the homes that sold in Almaden Valley, all 10 of them. And if you'd like to take a look at that and take a look where they are, there's no real clusters here, no real indicators that we're seeing anything geographically located. The only thing that we do note is that homes that are a little bit further up the commute do tend to sell a little bit better, and I know that's true for some of the folks I've shown properties to in Almaden. Usually once you get past Camden, buyers start getting a little bit more concerned about the commute. So if as a seller, that may be something you want to, instead of ignoring that or trying to pretend that that's not an issue, maybe come up with a strategy to address it yourself. Work with your agent to come up with those. But again, once you get past Camden with a lot of buyers, that's when a little bit of a concern starts to creep in. But I think what you get further down Almaden Road as you go into Almaden far overcomes any concerns about a commute. When you get some of the great property out there, the amazing views, there's really some beautiful homes down there, and I really think that with the right sort of marketing and the right sort of agents out there working for you, you can overcome those small problems. All right, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to what I have to say on these subjects. As usual, you will hear from me next month. Please feel free to use any of the methods listed here to get in contact with me, and I look forward to talking to you all next time. Thank you very much, and have a great day.